What can I do with all the information about layer, alpha channels and selections? Well, I will show you this with an example of our project. You see the back cover of our book. I want to tell trueSpace what to show and what it's not supposed to show. That is possible with an alpha mask. And I want to tell trueSpace which parts of it should render shinier than others. Like this book with its glossy cover compared to the old brown pages. Finally, I would like to tell trueSpace where my texture is supposed to have a relief-like surface. You know, I want to create a bump map. First, I duplicate the background layer because it's good to have a reference or at least a backup of the original picture. I name this layer Working Layer. I switch my backup to invisible and just start to work with my duplicate. Okay, I have to look to my picture to inspect it. I would say that the whole black part has the same material attributes. The yellow parts are the pages of the book and the brownish gray are the parts that should be ignored. Now it's time to separate the black parts. That's easy with a color range selector like this one in Photoshop. I just select the desired color with this color picker. Now I can define the fuzziness of my selection with this slider. As you can see, that's pretty well selected. And don't need to have the letters of the cover selected. I will do this manually because it's easier to do this in the mask. You can see the mask is now displayed as a selection. A selection is represented as this sparkling blinking line. It only shows that there is something selected. It's not an inside selected outside not indicator. To switch back to the real selection control, I use this small icon here to go back to my mask mode. Now I'm going to the mask color again. The mask is a channel with a grayscale palette from 0 to 255. The color is your choice. The color is just to show you what is selected or what not. You can even switch to show masked areas or show selected areas if you like. The opacity of your chosen color is only for show. If you have selected the wrong area inside, you can easily invert it. You can see that I'm still in the mask mode. All actions will only affect my mask and not the picture. By pressing Ctrl I invert my mask. To add the parts I haven't selected yet, I just paint my mask with a big paintbrush manually. Why does the color indicator show me black, though I painted in blue? That's because I'm still working in my mask and I have personally selected blue as my color that represents my mask. This color has no meaning. It's only the placeholder or my temporary working color. Okay, I paint the parts I want to have selected for my glossy or not glossy selection. The color range selected did most of the work already. Okay, enough. You see, everything that is masked blue will be used for something in trueSpace, the rest won't. If you want to see the selection thread, just go back to the normal mode. I'm still working with my whole picture, but I want to separate the glossy parts to a new layer. I can do this directly, but I will show you the way most of the photo editors will do it. I just copy the selection to my clipboard. Now I simply paste it to my picture. You see that Photoshop adds a new layer and doesn't copy it into this base layer. You see that our new layer comprised only the parts that I have selected with the mask. Okay, I rename that layer Shininess Selection because that part is glossy. Now I switch this layer off and go back to my working layer and activate it. I will now select my book's page parts. Those are supposed to be much less glossy than the cover. I do this similar to the selection method I have already shown you before. You can even zoom into your picture to have a better control on what is selected or what isn't. With Photoshop, you can do this by pressing Ctrl blank. I add some more color to the selection and play the fuzziness piano a bit. You see that the selection has included the book's parts which don't belong to the book. That's okay, because when I have the alpha mask up, this part of the picture will be ignored. I copy-paste that again and switch the other off to see what I have done. Okay, once more I see that my copy-pasted layer includes some parts which have already been defined as glossy. I can delete them with the eraser pen. You see that the page parts which I have selected and copied to a new layer will be the non-glossy part of my texture if you use it correctly in trueSpace. Again, I have the selection of the parts which are glossy and which are not. Now I use this layer for my final map. I add a new layer to my picture and name it Shininess. I move it to the top of my badge with a simple drag and drop. Oops, I forgot to rename this layer correctly. I do this quickly and reactivate my new layer. Now I want to combine my two selections to a simple grayscale picture, which I want to have as a map in trueSpace. I can do this by pressing Ctrl and click onto this preview. Photoshop uses the mask of this layer as a selection. I go back to my final layer. To see what I am doing, I just switch off the selection layer view mode. And now I fill this selection with black. I'm going to do the same with my no shininess layer. Remask it, select my layer and fill it with white. The result is a proper map to tell trueSpace where it should render more or less glossy. I just save the result as a merged map and name it Shininess Map. I would skip the parts of doing the alpha mask and bump right now. I think you are pretty familiar with doing it by your own now. If not, you can use the one in the syllabus.